morning, students. Today we are going to do the poem The Darkling Thrush by Thomas Hardy. Before we start with the poem, let me give you a brief introduction of the poem. This poem, that is The Darkling Thrush, was written by Hardy to lament the end of the 19th century, right? Because Hardy felt that this century, that is the 19th century, which was coming to an end, was far better than the upcoming century, right? He felt that the time which is about to come will be worse than the present time, right? And there were reasons for him to believe so, right? See, between the things which were happening around him, people were losing respect, right? There was lack of respect for human life. There were wars in Europe that time. So these were the characteristics of the modern age, right? Which Hardy was witnessing. And so he felt that the upcoming century will be far worse than the present century. Like, people were over ambitious. There was rapid industrialization going on. Everyone was only interested in acquiring more and more wealth and resources, right? There was cutthroat competition and greed for money. There was a decline of social and moral values. All these things were very much prevalent in that society. By the end of the 19th century, these things, they have started showing up in the society. One of the major reasons for this was the book Origin of a Species, which was written by Charles Darwin, right? According to that book, Darwin said that there is no role of God in the creation of humans, right? He gave a scientific theory how human life came into existence upon this earth, right? And when there was no role of God in our birth, then what happened? Two schools of thought emerged. One who believed in the existence of God, that God is our creator and we are on this earth because of God. And the other school of thought was that no, God doesn't have any role, and so why should we be afraid, right? So this led to a lot of immorality, and people, they started becoming unreligious, right? Religion was losing its importance by the end of the 19th century. So what was the result of it? There was chaos and confusion in the minds of the people, right? So human values will automatically come down, and social values, humanity was losing its importance. So these were the important things which were taking place in that era. And this poem, that is The Darkling Thrush, it was written by Hardy. It was like a lament poem. The poet is mourning the death of the century in this poem, right? So the beginning of the poem is very dismal. It is very bleak, right? It talks about a lot. There is a lot of negativity and pessimism in the starting lines of the poem, right? Because there is a description of death. Everything is lifeless in the first part of the poem. But when the poem comes to a close, because of the song which was sung by the thrush, right? The poet has tried to create hope, or the song of the thrush at the end of the poem is like a light of optimism, right? So let us start with the poem. I leant upon a coppice gate when frost was spectral gray. So there is a picture, the darkling thrush. I hope you first let me tell you what thrush is. See, this is a bird. Thrush is a very small singing bird, right? You can see it in the picture. I hope it is visible. Thrush is a very small singing bird. And darkling, darkling means dark, right? So when it was getting dark, this bird was singing a song. So that is why the poet has given the title The Darkling Thrush, right? Darkling can have another meaning, means when the poet was in the dark, right? He couldn't see properly. When the darkness is also associated with pessimism, when there was a lot of negativity, sadness, and the poet was in a depressed mood, so that can also be referred to as darkness. So the thrush which came in the dark and enlightened hope in the heart of the poet. So that can also be another meaning, the darkling thrush. I leant upon a coppice gate. Coppice gate means wooden gate. You can see in the picture the poet is leaning against a coppice gate. Right? You can see in the picture the poet is leaning against a coppice gate. Now, leaning against a gate, what does it signify? It means that the poet was tired, right? Exhaustion. When do you lean against something? When you are tired, when you are fatigued, right? So I leant upon the coppice gate, means the poet is tired of seeing all that commotion and chaos which is happening around him, right? The situation of the world, on seeing the situation of the world, the current scenario of the world, all these things, they have made the poet feel tired and exhausted. And gate signifies entry and exit. So the poet is standing at the gate, right? What is the symbolism of this? That one century is coming to an end, right? And another century is outside the gate waiting to enter. So the poet standing at the gate, leaning against the gate, means that he was at the threshold of entering a new century, right? So I leant upon a coppice gate when frost was spectre gray. Coppice gate is wooden gate when frost was spectre gray. Spectre gray means ghostly, as gray as a ghost, right? And winter's dregs make desolate, the weakening eye of day. Winter's dregs. Dregs means the last part, means the last days of winter. I told you this poem was written at the turn of the century, so it must be the end of the year. That is, the poem was written on 29th of December 1900, right? And then the century is the year is about to end, and along with the year, the century is also about to end, and the new century is about to begin. So when frost was spectre gray, so if what happens in December in countries like Europe, everything is covered with frost, right? Everything is covered with ice. You can see it in the picture. Everything was spectre gray. Spectre gray means as gray as a ghost. Everything was ghostly. And winter's dregs made desolate. Then winter's dregs means the last part of winter, that is the last days of winter, made desolate. Desolate means everything was cheerless, without any kind of enthusiasm, right? Everything was deserted because it was the time of evening and it was very cold outside, the end days of December. So it was very cold outside. So there were no human beings to be seen, right? And because everyone must be sitting inside their houses in some warm and cozy corner of their houses. So everything was deserted and cheerless. There was no cheer, there was no enthusiasm, there was no life to be seen around the world. So in winter's dregs made desolate, the weakening eye of day. The weakening eye of day is a reference to sun, right? The weakening eye of day means the sun. And when does the sun's eye weaken? It happens during the evening. So the weakening eye of day means that it was the time of the evening and the sun's eye has weakened, right? Means the power of the sun was not so strong. The sun has set or was on the verge of setting. So the eye, the weakening of what is the eye of the day? The eye of the day is the sun, and that had weakened. So it was the time, what the poet is trying to convey in this line is that it was the time of evening. The tangled vine stems spot the sky like strings of broken lyre, right? So the tangled vine stems means the stems of the pine tree which were entangled, right? They were the leafless trees because during winter there is no greenery to be seen in that part of Europe, right? In European countries, there is no greenery during the time of winter. The trees, they shed off their leaves in autumn, right? And then new leaves, they come during spring. So the trees, they appeared like the tangled vine stems scoured the sky. Scoured the sky means they were reaching the sky, right? So those tangled vine stems. So the vine stems you can see in the picture, the stems, they are entangled, and these tangled stems, there's interwoven stems of the trees, the dry interwoven stems of the trees or the branches of the trees have been compared to the strings of broken lyre. Now, what is a lyre? Lyre is a musical instrument, right, which has strings. And what happens when the strings of the musical instrument, they break, they get entangled. So a simile has been used in these lines, right? The tangled vine stems spot the sky. So the tangled stems of the meaning is branches, the tangled stems and branches of the pine tree, they were reaching the sky, they were interwoven, entangled in one another, and they resembled the strings of the broken lyre. Lyre is a musical instrument which has the strings. So when these strings, they break, what happened? They also get entangled and they resemble. That is why this comparison, this simile has been used by the poet. There is a simile in this line, like the strings of broken lyre. So like the strings of broken lyre. There is a simile. One more figure of speech I forgot, which was here. The frost was personified because the frost appeared like a ghost. So it was personified, right? Frost has been compared to the ghost in these lines. So the tangled vine stems caught the sky like strings of broken lyre, and all mankind that haunted nigh had sought their household fire. So all the mankind, nigh means near, all the mankind which was there nearby, which lived nearby, had sought their household fire. So now all the human beings, every human being, so who will be out at this hour in such cold weather in the evening? Nobody will be out. When there is sunlight, people, they enjoy sitting in the sun in winter. But in the evening, they go back to their houses and sit next to the household fire. So that is what the poet is saying, that all mankind that haunted night, all the human beings who were nearby, they had sought their household fires. Now they are inside their houses and they are sitting comfortably next to the fireplace in their houses. The land's sharp features seem to be the century's corpse outline. The land's sharp features means the outlines of the winter landscape. They seem to be the century's corpse outline. Now I told you, the poet is lamenting, or the poet is mourning the death of the century. So here the century has also been personified, right? A century will not have a corpse or a dead body, but the century has been personified here. So the landscape which was visible to the poet, right? The outline of the winter landscape, it is like the century's corpse outline. Outline means lying in front of him, that is stretched out, right? His crypt, the cloudy canopy. Crypt means the tomb. And this cloudy canopy, these clouds which are there in the sky, they are like a tomb of the corpse of the century, right? The wind has death lament. And the wind which is blowing in this cold evening, it seems as if it is singing a death lament. The sound which is produced by the wind in such cold evening is compared to the death lament, right? So that sound seems to be a death song, right? Or a mourning song, just sung during the time of death. So in these lines, the poet has presented the picture of image of death has been presented by the poet, right? these lines, the poet has created picture of death. The ancient pulse of germ and birth was shrunken heart and dry. So ancient pulse of germ and birth means life form elements, all the elements of life were shrunken hard and dry. So what happens in these in the winter season? The seeds, there is no life to be seen anywhere in nature, right? Why? Because the seeds, they are buried in the snow. And when the winters will come and this snow will, so when the summers, when the spring will come and this snow will melt, what will happen? New life will come out of those seeds. So that is what the poet is saying, the ancient pulse of germ and birth. Means the life form elements, they are shrunken hard and dry. So they have become hard and dry. And every spirit upon earth seemed powerless as I. So because there is no life, everything was lifeless, right? I told you that in these lines, the poet has presented the picture of death. So everything was without life, everything was lifeless. So when everything will be lifeless, there will be no fervor, there will be no energy. And so the poet says everything around, as far as the poet could see, everything seemed to be and appeared to be lifeless, without energy, without enthusiasm, without any kind of excitement. So when the poet was mourning the death of the century, what happened? At once a voice arose among the bleak twigs over there. What happened? At that very moment, the poet heard some voice among the bleak twigs over here. So those bleak, those dull twigs which were there, right? The twigs of trees which were devoid of all leaves, right? The leafless twigs, the leafless branches of the trees. What happened? Just overhead, right? The poet heard some voice. Now, what was that voice? In a full-hearted even song. Even song means the song which is sung during the time of evening. So, in a full-hearted even song. Full-hearted means with complete energy, full of energy. Even song means evening song of joy illimited. Illimited means unlimited joy. The song which the poet heard was full of unlimited joy. And who was singing this song? An aged thrush, frail, gaunt, and small. So this song was being sung by a thrush who was aged. Frail means weak, gaunt means thin, and small. So a bird which was very small, very thin, very weak, and aged also. So even the physical conditions of the bird, right, were unfavorable, but still the bird was full of enthusiasm. The bird was full of energy and a lot of vigor, and was singing this even song, the song in the evening, with her entire energy, right? In blast beruffled plumes. Blast beruffled plumes means they battered plumes. Battered plumes or feathers. The feathers, they were battered because of the wind, right? The cold winds, they have battered, and his feathers were disorderly because of the cold winds which were blowing. Yes. See, this description of the bird tells us that the bird was about to die, right? The end of the bird was near. These words, the aged bird, frail, gone, beruffled plumes. So the physical condition of the bird was not good. The thrush which was singing the song was not in a very healthy condition, right? But still, in spite of his body not allowing her to sing a song, right, with so much energy, with so much vigor, still it was the optimism of the bird, the hope of the bird, which forced the bird to sing the song with full energy, with full enthusiasm. So we see that in these lines, till here the poet was giving a dull and a dismal description, a very bleak description of the entire landscape. And from here, from these lines, there is a total change, a complete change from desolation to hope. Right? When everything was hopeless around the poet. Right? When everything was bleak around the poet, there was no hope for the poet. Right? Every object of nature was talking about lifelessness, was talking about death, and all these things. What happened? A bird came, which was physically weak, with beruffled plumes, which was aged, small, thin, but it was singing a song with its full energy, with joy unlimited. The song was joyous, which was contradictory to the atmosphere, right? Which was contradictory to the entire environment surrounding that place, had chosen thus to fling his soul upon the glowing. So, what was the bird doing? Fling his soul means, so the bird was singing the song with a lot of ecstasy. Very ecstatically, the bird was singing the song, right? With full joy, with full energy, with full enthusiasm upon the growing gloom, right? So the growing gloom means the growing gloomy evening, which was becoming darker and darker. But as the evening was growing dark, the bird was singing, was flinging his soul in that song, right? With a lot of joy, with a lot of happiness, the bird was singing the song. Now this confuses the poet, right? The song of the bird creates doubts in the mind of the poet, and the poet starts wondering. So little cause for caroling. Caroling means singing, right? So the poet says that there is absolutely no cause for singing, right? Of such ecstatic sound. Of such ecstatic sound means there is no need. I cannot see anything in nature, right, which is motivating this bird to sing a joyous song, to sing an ecstatic song at this time. When the entire atmosphere, when pessimism has covered the entire atmosphere, how can this bird sing a song, and that too a joyous one, full of joy? Was written on terrestrial things. So when each terrestrial object, terrestrial means earthly, right, or worldly. So the poet is unable to comprehend that what is that thing which is motivating this bird to sing in such a joyful manner when everything was written on terrestrial things, so afar and nigh around. When there is nothing, when no object of this world is motivating the bird to sing such kind of a song, right? When no earthly object is in a happy mood, when the entire earth is lifeless, right? Without life, without energy, without vigor, then how can the bird sing such a joyful song? This the poet is unable to comprehend. This for fact, the poet is not able to understand. That I could think they tremble through his happy good night air. Some blessed hope whereof he knew, and I was unaware. So the poet says that I could think they tremble through. Means the poet says that I don't feel any kind of happiness. Right? So there must be something which this bird is able to feel. There must be some happiness which this bird is able to feel, and I am unable to feel. That is why the bird is singing this song in the happy good night air, right? Trying to spread happiness in this night air. Some blessed hope whereof he knew, and I was unaware. So hope is personified here. So the poet says that there must be definitely some hope about which the bird is aware, because as far as I can see, all the objects of this earth, they are gloomy, they are sad, there is despair, right? So there must be something which is creating some hope, some optimism in the mind of this bird, and I am unaware of that thing. That is why the bird is happy. The bird is singing with full joy. and I am unable to understand the joy, that reason of happiness, right? So with this, so the poem ends on the with a note of hope, right? So these lines, they tell that the poet feels that he should not be hopeless about the upcoming century. There might be some hope. Things might change. Things might not be the same as they are now. Or instead of worsening, the things might become better. The situation might become better. So poet ends with these lines. The poet ends the poem on a optimistic note, some blessed hope. There might be some divine blessing upon this world, right? Of which this bird is aware, which I am not able to understand. With this, we come to the end of this poem. Thank you.